The drums were loud. Too loud. In the heart of the city, under a wide tent dressed in gold fabric and green leaves, the wedding of Kofi Adeyemi had become the kind of celebration people would talk about for years. Women danced barefoot on the earth, men clapped in rhythm, children ran between chairs, laughing. This was not just a wedding. This was a victory. Kofi had grown up with nothing. No father, no wealth, just a small village and a mother who worked until her hands hardened like old wood. Today, he was a man being celebrated. The bride sat beside him, Amma, calm and beautiful, wrapped in vibrant Ankara fabric, her smile gentle but cautious. Her family sat proudly behind her. Then, the drums slowed. At first, no one noticed. Then the singing stopped. A single creak echoed through the tent. The entrance door opened. A woman stepped inside. She was old, her back slightly bent, her face calm, too calm, and she was wearing a white wedding gown. Not a simple white dress, a wedding gown. The air froze. Someone gasped. Someone else laughed nervously, thinking it was a joke. But the woman did not smile. She walked slowly forward, her footsteps heavy, deliberate, as if each step carried a lifetime. Kofi stood up. His heart slammed against his chest. "Mother?" he whispered. Yes, it was his mother. People began to whisper, "What kind of mother does this? Is she cursed? Is she jealous of her own son?" Amma's hands began to shake. The woman stopped in the middle of the aisle. She did not look at the guests. She did not look at the bride. She looked only at her son. And for the first time that day, the drums went completely silent. No one told the guests to be quiet. Silence came on its own, the heavy kind, the kind that presses against your ears. People leaned toward each other. She wants attention. She must be angry he didn't choose her people. This is a bad sign, very bad. Amma's mother stood up halfway, her face tight with embarrassment. "This wedding cannot continue like this," she muttered. Kofi walked toward his mother, his steps unsure. "Why are you dressed like this?" he asked softly, trying to keep his voice steady. The woman did not answer. She smiled. Not a happy smile, not a sad one. A smile that looked like someone who had already made peace with something no one else understood. The wedding planner whispered urgently, "Should we escort her out?" Kofi raised his hand. "No." His mother finally spoke, her voice calm, almost gentle. "Let the wedding continue," she said. That made everything worse. Amma looked at her then, truly looked. For the first time, she noticed the woman's eyes. They were not angry. They were tired, as if this moment had been coming for many years. The woman reached into her gown and touched her chest lightly, not dramatically, just briefly, and then lowered her hand. No one noticed, but Amma did. Long before this wedding, before the city, before the gold decorations, there was a village called Kijani. That village knew Kofi's mother very well. She became a widow before her hair even began to gray. Men came to her house with promises. "I will raise the boy as my own. You should not grow old alone. A woman needs a husband." She always said the same thing. "My son already has one parent. That is enough." Years passed. When other women attended weddings, she stayed home. When others dressed beautifully, she wrapped herself in work. She sold food, she cleaned houses, she carried water. At night, when Kofi slept, she would sit by the fire and stare into the flames. Sometimes she would cough, hard. She never mentioned it. Back at the wedding, Amma's hands trembled in her lap. This was not what she imagined. She leaned toward Kofi and whispered, "Did you know about this?" He shook his head.
Amma stood up slowly. She walked toward the woman in white. Everyone watched. Up close, Amma noticed something else. The gown was slightly too big, as if it had been altered many times. "You look beautiful," Amma said, surprising even herself. The woman's eyes softened. "You are brave," she replied. That was all. Amma felt a chill run through her. This was not rivalry. This was something else, something final. That night, after the wedding finally resumed, awkward, restrained, unfinished, Kofi's childhood friend Jabari returned home uneasy. He could not forget the woman's face. Something about her calm disturbed him. In her old room, Jabari noticed a wooden box beneath the bed. Locked, dusty, heavy. He touched it, and for the first time, he felt what everyone else had missed that day. This wedding was not the beginning of something. It was the end. Jabari sat on the edge of Kofi's mother's old bed, the wooden box heavy in his lap. His fingers traced the carved patterns along its surface. Dust fell onto his hands, tiny motes that shimmered in the pale moonlight creeping through the cracked window. Something about the box felt alive, not in the way of magic, not exactly, but it carried weight of years, weight of things unseen. He shook it gently, a faint rattling inside, a sound almost like a whisper. He froze. Footsteps approached the room, soft, careful, deliberate. It was Kofi. "What are you doing here?" Kofi asked, his voice low, shaking slightly. Jabari swallowed hard. I don't know," he said. I had to see." Kofi glanced at the box. Recognition flickered in his eyes, and for a moment he looked older than he should. "You shouldn't touch that," he murmured. She doesn't want anyone opening it. Not yet." The words made Jabari's heart pound. Not yet. Why not yet? What was inside? The two boys sat in silence. The box between them felt like it carried the weight of the entire night. Outside, the wind rattled the windows, and the city seemed far away. Finally, Kofi whispered, almost to himself, "Everything she's done, every choice, every secret, it's all in there." Jabari's curiosity turned to fear, the kind that digs into your chest and makes your throat tight. He knew one thing for certain. This wedding had been only a mask. Something else had always been at play. Meanwhile, Kofi's mother walked the hallways of their home, her white gown brushing the floor softly. Her steps were careful but unhurried. She paused at the window overlooking the city. Lights blinked in the distance, but none of them mattered. Her mind was elsewhere. Memories crowded her. Years of silence. Years of sacrifices no one saw. Decisions she had made alone. Decisions she carried like stones in her chest. Back in the bedroom, Kofi and Jabari heard a soft creak in the hallway. They looked up. Her figure was gone. Just like that. Where did she go?" Jabari whispered. Kofi didn't answer. He felt the old fear he hadn't felt in years, the fear that the calm woman in white knew something no one else did. Outside, the wind picked up, moving leaves in erratic patterns. Shadows stretched across the floor, bending unnaturally. It felt as though someone was watching them from the corners of the room, from the spaces between moments. Jabari shivered. He held the box tighter. It was no longer just wood and nails. It was a warning. The next morning, the village stirred with quiet rumors. "They say the mother wore the bridal gown," one woman whispered to another. "She stood silently, but everyone felt something," said a man leaning against a wall. "Something isn't right," a child added, unsure of the words but sensing the tension. Kofi wandered through the village streets, still in his suit, but he barely noticed the chatter. He could feel the gaze of every villager on him. Some were curious, some fearful, some filled with judgment, but none understood what had truly happened. Amma stayed beside him, sensing his distance. "Kofi, are you okay?" she asked, her voice soft. He shook his head. I don't know," he said. That evening, the elder of the village found Kofi. "Some things are not for the young," he said quietly, "but you are old enough to notice. You are old enough to carry it when the time comes." Kofi frowned. Carry what? What could be so heavy that even the elders spoke in riddles? Meanwhile, the mother had disappeared again. No one saw her leave. No one saw her return. Yet her presence lingered, a shadow on the walls, a weight in the air. Jabari kept glancing at the box, wondering what it held. He could feel it vibrating slightly in his hands, as if impatient to reveal its secrets. That night, Kofi couldn't sleep. The city outside hummed with distant music, with life, but inside the home, everything was still. He went to his mother's room, the one she rarely entered anymore. The scent of sandalwood and faint smoke filled the air, along with something else, a strange heaviness he couldn't name. The box sat on the floor where Jabari had left it. Kofi knelt and touched it. It was cold, heavier than he remembered. His mother entered silently. She didn't startle him, but her presence filled the room like a physical force. "You shouldn't open it," she said, voice calm but unshakable. "Some things will find you, whether you are ready or not." Kofi's chest tightened. "Mother, why today? Why the gown? Why now?" She looked at him with eyes that held oceans, calm on the surface, but deep with storms below. And in that gaze he saw every choice she had ever made, every sacrifice, every moment she had hidden behind her silence. A shiver ran through him. The box wasn't just a box. It was a life condensed into wood and hinges, and he had no idea if he was ready to open it. Outside, the wind rose again, sweeping through the trees and along the village roads. Smoke from cooking fires mingled with the mist, curling like silent figures that moved and paused and disappeared. Jabari returned to the house, unable to stop thinking about the box. Something inside it shifted as soon as he entered the room. A faint sound, a whisper, or just the wind? He could not tell. Kofi sat at the dining table, his hands folded, staring at nothing. The wedding felt like a memory already fading, but the tension in the house kept him pinned in place. His mother appeared again at the window, white gown catching the silver light of the moon. She looked beyond the city, beyond the village, beyond everything that existed in the present. No one could read her expression. No one could guess what she was thinking. But the air around her had changed. It carried something old, something patient, something that had been waiting. The wedding was over, the celebrations ended, but something far heavier had begun. And nobody, not Kofi, not Jabari, not Amma, understood what it was, yet. The morning light filtered through the thin curtains, painting the room in soft gold. Kofi sat on the floor, staring at the box. Its presence was almost unbearable, like a heartbeat he could feel against his own chest. Amma entered quietly, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You're not sleeping again?" she whispered. Kofi shook his head. "I can't. I don't know why she did it. Why the gown? Why the silence? I feel like there's something I'm not allowed to know." Amma looked at him, worried. Maybe some things are meant to remain hidden? He laughed bitterly, a sound that didn't reach his eyes. Hidden? No, not meant. Not after today. Everything has changed. Meanwhile, Jabari sat nearby, glancing at the box, as if waiting for it to speak. Something about the way it rested there, so ordinary yet so ominous, was eating at him. Outside, the wind picked up, brushing against the windows like fingers. Shadows moved across the walls, stretching unnaturally. Kofi's mother appeared at the doorway, silent, almost ghost-like. She looked at her son, then at Jabari, and finally at the box. No words were spoken, but the room grew heavier with every passing second. And in that silence, Kofi realized something terrifying. Today was only the beginning. The village remained quiet, as if holding its breath. The mother walked through the rooms of the house, each step deliberate, echoing softly. Her gown brushed against the floor, whispering stories no one else could hear. Kofi followed, desperate for answers. "Mother, please," he pleaded. "I need to understand." She stopped abruptly, turning to face him. Her eyes, deep and dark, held something Kofi had never seen before, a lifetime of secrets, pain, and unshed tears. "Some truths," she said softly, "are not yours to carry yet." Kofi felt frustration boil inside him. "Not mine? I've lived my whole life under your shadow. Everything I am, everything I've done is because of you." She did not flinch. Instead, she looked past him, at a point he couldn't see. "One day, you will understand, but that day is not today." Jabari, watching from the corner, felt the weight of her words settle like a stone in the room. The box seemed to pulse under his gaze, as if alive, reminding him that some doors are locked for a reason and some keys are not yet in anyone's hands. The night fell thick and suffocating. The wind carried strange noises through the village, rustling leaves, creaking wooden roofs, and the distant sound of drums that had long stopped beating. Kofi could not sleep. He wandered the empty hallways, hearing whispers that seemed to come from nowhere. Shadows moved along the walls, twisting into forms he couldn't recognize. He found himself in the room where the box rested. It seemed to call to him now, quietly, patiently. "Open me," he thought he heard. "Open me." Again, a whisper he could not place. Suddenly, the mother appeared at the doorway, her figure framed in the pale light. She did not speak, she simply watched. Kofi's pulse quickened. He felt as if the night itself had become alive, waiting, watching, judging. "Why are you doing this to me?" he finally said, his voice shaking. She finally answered, her tone calm, almost a lullaby, yet chilling. "Because some endings must be seen before beginnings can exist. Some truths cannot wait, yet you are not ready." The shadows in the room seemed to lean closer. The box rattled faintly, as if acknowledging her words. The next day, Kofi and Jabari returned to the room with renewed determination. The box had remained untouched since the night of whispers, but its presence now felt unbearable. Jabari shook the box slightly. A soft creak came from inside, almost like breathing. "Do you think it's alive?" he whispered. Kofi didn't answer. He couldn't. His mother stood silently at the doorway, watching, as if weighing whether the moment had come for revelation. He noticed something subtle. The box seemed to shift under Jabari's hands, tilting slightly toward the window. A beam of sunlight fell on it, and for a second, a faint engraving glimmered on its side. Neither of them could read it, yet both felt its significance deep in their bones. The mother stepped forward, her eyes softening for the first time in days. "This box holds what I could not give you, Not because I wanted to hide it, but because the world is not ready for it, and neither are you." Jabari and Kofi exchanged a glance. Questions burned on their lips, but no words came. The mystery had only deepened. That evening, the mother led Kofi and Jabari back to the box. "Today," she said softly, "you will see why some endings must happen quietly, why sacrifices are hidden, why love sometimes walks away in silence." Her hands trembled slightly as she unlocked the box. Dust rose, caught in the golden light spilling from the fireplace. Inside were old letters, photographs, and a small bundle wrapped in white cloth. A lifetime of memories, regrets, and choices carefully preserved. Kofi felt tears rise, but he could not move. Jabari's hands shook. The weight of decades pressed down on them. Every hidden sorrow, every quiet sacrifice, every moment no one witnessed. The mother spoke, voice steady but soft. "All of this was never meant to hurt you. It was meant to protect you, to teach you that life is more than what you see, that love sometimes leaves quietly, and courage sometimes wears silence." For the first time, Kofi understood fragments of what had happened. The mother's life, her sacrifices, the way she had carried the weight of his childhood alone. He knelt before her. "Mother, I never knew," he whispered. She smiled faintly. "You don't need to know everything. Only what you can carry. Only what will make you strong." Jabari watched silently, feeling the gravity of a life lived in quiet heroism. The wind outside softened. Shadows no longer danced wildly. The house seemed at peace. Yet a final secret lingered, unspoken but visible in the mother's eyes. A life ended, a chapter closed, and a love that had carried all burdens quietly. The mother removed the bundle from the box. Inside was a small, fragile wedding gown from decades ago, folded neatly. She held it close to her chest. "This," she whispered, "was my last dream. I never wore it for me. I never needed to. I wore it today so you could see what I could not say with words. That life is sacrifice, love is quiet, and endings are sometimes the greatest gifts." Kofi understood fully now. Every tear, every hesitation, every shadow. It had all been her way of saying goodbye to the life she had carried alone. He took her hands in his. "Thank you," he whispered. Amma joined him, silent, moved beyond words. Jabari closed the box. Dust settled. Silence returned. The wedding had ended weeks ago, but the real story had only concluded now. The mother walked to the window one last time, looking over the city she had protected with every choice she had made. And for the first time in years, she allowed herself to rest. The story of sacrifice, love, and endings had finally been told.